Depends on what the person wants. Yeah. So he determines what the cap is.
What the client wants.
Yes.
All right. What do you make of this move? We know that a publication was made about him, that an investment so-called of 60 million was made, and it was said, according to the story, speculated because of an indiscretion, inability to be able to manage well and all that. He thought that was not the right way to go.
Yeah, you know, I think that Dr. Opuni has waited too long to take this action. I have seen various spurious and, you know, unprintable publications about him, especially immediately after the NDC lost power. And it's better late than never. I think it is high time that people in authority, especially in the political arena, do not also always leave some of these things to the politics of the day, but take action to ensure that people in the media, especially who are engaged in doing the dirty work of political parties and politicians, are held to the highest level of accountability. There's absolutely nothing wrong with working in the media and having a political ideology. But what is expected of every journalist, whether you support a political party and you are using your platform to advance the cause of that political party or not, is for you to be fair, is for you to be objective, and is for you to be candid. And I think it is by some of these suits that papers like Daily Guide, that has elected to become the mouthpiece of the New Patriotic Party, which, by the way, is not wrong per our practice. We just have to identify them as who they are and ensure that they are also held to the highest standards as the profession requires.
Al Hassan Suhini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North. All right, but let's go on to look at something that has become topical. You
don't want my thoughts on this matter?
Oh, I thought you had. Sorry.
I never had. You are denying me.
No, you said you were.
Of your right to
you limited your comments. So.
No, I didn't. You just
no, because you were the first person.
You just pounced on me as if you were just doing an intro.
Okay. Yeah, it was an intro, so this one was just supposed to be an aside.
Thank you very much. Good morning to our viewers and the good people of Okaikwe Central. I think every Ghanaian has the right to take any legal action when it offends that person's right. And I think it's within Dr. Puni's right to do so. And I also want to believe that Daily Guide, I was looking for yesterday's publication to take a critical look of what the caption was, whether there was a question mark, there was certain things to insulate themselves, because I'm sure they would have done some checks with their legal officers to be sure of what they were going to put out. It's interesting for me to hear from Suhini talking about newspapers and media outlets that have political affiliation. Yes, Suhini once served at Radio Gold, and he did his best. Today, he's a sitting member of Parliament. He also has come to appreciate certain things that one ought to say and what one ought not to say. So let the law take its course. I believe in that. I believe that it's within the right of Dr. Opuni to seek redress at the court. And I think Daily Guide will also have to put up a strong defense because they should have a defense, and that I'm sure will be within the rights and ambits of the judge who will determine it. Because to prove defamation has certain ingredients. So let's leave it to the court to decide. I don't want to go
maybe just a minor correction. I am not, finding out what has to be said when you are in the media now. I've always been a very responsible media practitioner, and throughout my over 15 years in the media, not even once was I sued for anything that is related to defamation.
That's correct.
And the evidence is there.
All right.
Yeah.
Now let's move on. The minority, they held a press conference yesterday. Also on the front page of the Daily Guide, there was a publication. Of course, we had various publications also on the various news portals, online portals, mainstream media about some sitting members of parliament who had served as ministers in the previous John Mahama-led administration, who had been so-called, been receiving double salaries from 2013, thereabout, over 2016. They were said to have been invited by the police CID, and the press conference sort of situates the fact that they really were not in a position to have received two salaries at the same time, or that sitting members of parliament and serving as ministers of state, etc. But you're here, and I think we have to put the situation and the whole issue in perspective. What has transpired since that press conference? What would you say to it?
Well, first of all, let me say that as a minority, we think this attempt to smear some members of the minority is an indication to us that indeed our work as a minority meant to hold government to account is really biting hard, and the government is feeling the fire and very uncomfortable with the way as a minority in parliament we have held them to account. So they will fall on anything to attempt to discredit us as a group. Unfortunately, they have gone to pick one that can't stick because it simply has no basis. And it is also aimed at diverting attention from the numerous scandals that the country is currently, dealing with. The president's shambolic response or address to the nation over the U.S.-Ghana relation or agreement that we believe amounts to some level of sale of our sovereignty. The Commonwealth Games, where you have, the sports ministry supporting people who are not journalists, to embarrass the country in the way that, we are all witnessing, not even a single medal. Yet we have come home with a medal of disgrace where, people who can't even spell their names are presented as journalists. And we are told some visa racketeering has even taken place because some of them are claiming they paid huge sums of money to some officials before their names were submitted. I mean, these are the scandals. In fact, the government is so scandal prone that I'm sure as a journalist, you find it very difficult to decide on which one to focus on, because before you even gather all the issues relating to a matter, another scandal breaks daily. And the government is feeling the heat, and that is why they seek to divert attention from all these scandals by bringing up this, very, very needless publication that has no basis. Because, for example, as a minority yesterday at the press conference, the question we are asking is, who is accusing who? We know how processes leading to payments and utilization of government money is conducted. The Auditor General, for example, would have carried out some audit. Is there any audit report that shows that some people have received double salary? Where is that audit report? Because at in every transaction of government that involves funds is audited. It's audited. 2013 to 2016, the Auditor General would have audited, and with the Finance Ministry, whatever reconciliation has to be done would have been done on the basis of an audit. Where is an audit indicating that some people took double salary? Now, that is why some of our members are indicating to the CID that if they do not indicate to them who is accusing them, they will sue the CID. Because we need to know who is accusing the MPs of taking double salary, so that if they want to take legal action, they can take that action against who is accusing them. Because the CID is simply saying, come help us do or confer with us. What is the meaning of confer? In fact, I mean, the legal meaning of confer is not even determined. So as a minority, we are saying, and it was repeated several times at the press conference, that not a single member of the NDC government in parliament who was also a minister received double salary. And we are ready any day, any time to, prove that beyond any reasonable doubt. But we will not be intimidated. We will not be cowed by this, Machiavellian tactics of trying to divert attention from the scandals that this government, is battling with today. Not a single member of the, NDC government in Parliament or outside Parliament took double salary. That we have stated.
So we take you to that press conference. We get a soundbite from there, and we come to have that response from the Honourable Member for Kankwe Central.
As a matter of practice and conventions, Article 71 office holders, including members of Parliament, ministers of state and deputy ministers, are always paid on account, awaiting the establishment and finalization of work of the Presidential Emolument Committee. This is currently what pertains even in the life of the 7th Parliament and with all current ministers of state. In the case of the Mahama administration, it would be recalled that the Presidential Emolument Committee did not complete its work until November 2016. This meant, in effect, that all payment made to Article 71 office holders, including members of Parliament, ministers and deputy ministers of state, were only payment in advance of the determination of the actual salaries payable and conditions of service due these office holders. In consequence, upon the completion of the work of the Presidential Emolument Committee in November 2016, the then Minister of Finance, Honorable Seth Tepe, issued a release to the Controller and Accountant General's Department and to the Accounts Department of the Parliamentary Service for the attention of the Accounts Unit. It is important to note that the Minister for Finance instructed the Auditor General to subject the release to audit and reconciliation to determine the actual amount due each Article 71 office holder, since they had only been paid in advance. This was duly done, and it emerged that government owes the Article 71 office holders huge salary arrests. At the point of the audit by the Auditor General, it was also detected that the advance paid to a handful of Article 71 office holders were more than others that had received. Most of these were computational errors. This notwithstanding, the amount paid to the category of office holders were not in excess of their salaries entitlement as determined by the Presidential Emolument Committee. Therefore, there could not have been situation of overpayment or double receipt of salaries by the said office holders.
Mr. Patrick Yabuama.
Yes.
So your response? You just watched that press conference and
Yes.
listened to the Honourable Member for...
I listened to Honourable Suhini, and I've listened to my good friend Atu Forsen. Well, we're in this country when the NDC ministers and under President Mahama decided to set aside 10% of their salaries to undertake certain healthcare facilities, that what we call a CHIP compound within the country. We didn't see anything come out of that project based on the findings. Let me finish. Now, Nobu Suhini is saying that they are not going to respond because they don't know who the accusers are.
I didn't say that. I didn't.
Who is accusing them, or the audit report?
I didn't say we are not going to respond. We have responded. And I've stated our response. I'm only saying that we want better information so we can sue.
Yeah, so if you go to the CID, none of the former appointees is being denied the right facilities or opportunity to ask the CID why you are inviting me what it is that I'm being investigated for, the documents or otherwise. There are serious lawyers within that group. I saw the name of Honorable Bagbin, I saw Haruna Idrisu, I saw Honorable E.T. Mensah. They are not lightweights that can be pushed over by the CID. Question is, at what time did the president, former president, set out this committee to determine the salaries of government appointees? We're told in their own press conference that this was concluded in November 2016. We're in Parliament. We hear Honorable Muntaka and some of our colleagues from the majority side asking that such committees are put in place ahead of time to be able to avoid such situations. Ato in his statement was talking about computer errors and what have you.
No.
I heard him.
Yes.
Some.
In what context?
In the context that could have led to some of them receiving salaries more than what they were due.
Roland, you can
Please,
play.
let me finish.
These are factual things. You don't have to play politics.
I'm not playing politics.
He said that there were computational errors, but even with those computational errors, nobody got double salary.
So,
point made.
So you don't say that. You don't say that.
Even if there were computational errors.
From your side, not from our side.
From your side.
Because we handed over to you. So
you handed over to us, and we've detected it, and the police, I was trying to correct you, have every right under law, without any report to them, initiate investigation into any matter.
Whether criminal or otherwise.
Anything. That is what I want Suhini to understand, that the police are doing what they ought to do normally or regularly under law. And they are
so
not
they are doing this because the MP is not necessarily committed any offense.
I'm telling you, when we talk about supporting state institutions and politicians come and say,
I'm asking, so the police CID, hearing representing the management of the police service, is doing this not necessarily because the so-called, whether they've been trained from 25 to 18 members of parliament who also served as ministers under the John Mahama.
My information is
not because they committed any crime.
No, my information is that
of receiving double salary.
The number could even increase.
Your information is that the number could increase.
Could increase.
Okay. That information you have.
I'm telling you that.
How big can the number be?
I can't tell you.
But you have the information that even the list could increase.
Could increase. So Roland, I'm
because approximately under the John Mahama-led administration, before the administration wound up, we had about 80-something ministers. 84, 85. Yeah. So it means that per what the Constitution says, and we had around over 50 of them being members of parliament.
Possibly.
So we're likely to have a list of about 50.
But Roland,
I'm asking.
Question is,
you have information, so the list could increase about 50.
I'm not saying I'm not going to give you any figure, but I'm saying that the information I have tells me that the number could increase. That is not to say that all of them will be culpable. We have to make that distinction.
Well, culpability means what? If you say culpability, what are you
truly received double salary. Question is, the police will call you, they will invite you, they will ask you questions, and if you're able to explain yourself, nobody will witch hunt you. We should stay away from this situation that when the police is being asked to do A, B, C, D, then a press conference is held. Oh, witch hunting. Then later in life, the same group of persons will come and be pleading for mitigation and what have you, and that we didn't know. Let the institution work.
If you check the content of the press conference, the thrust of the issue was that salaries, whether beginning or ending, had not been set. So whatever remuneration was being received by a minister of state, whether a minister or a deputy or whatever, is inconclusive, so to speak, has not been defined. That's it. Because the body that was supposed to do that hadn't even been constituted, even to
Now who caused them? Who didn't constitute that body?
But,
because we've been in this
country
that
point is moot,
where a properly constituted commission for emolument had been set aside and a new one. So these are some of the disturbances that we encounter when governments change hands. That a commission is put in place, then somebody comes into government and says that, oh, I don't like your face. I don't like what you are doing. Let me also put together another committee to determine your emoluments. Those are the imbalances that could occur and could lead to some of these occurrences. Number two, what I'm saying is that the police CID has the capacity to look into every matter such as this. It's not a witch hunt, neither is it an attempt by the government of the day to embarrass any official of the former administration. If any of these officials are invited and they have strong views, their lawyers will be with them. They can challenge the procedures and the processes that are being used by the CID to investigate some of these matters. They could request for any document that they could rely on to insulate themselves or absolve themselves from any wrongdoings. So I'm against this kind of preemptive strikes of press conferencing by the new National Democratic.
You think it's one too many?
Oh, one too many.
Okay, but before before I come to him, what's your status? Are you receiving a salary? Because you're deputy minister,
I'm
aren't you?
receiving a salary as a member of parliament.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So what sort of remuneration are you being given as a minister?
Fantastic question.
Remuneration as a minister.
You're a deputy minister.
All my entitlements are based on my position as a member of parliament, because you are asked to fill a form and I'm on category 64, and you notify the Controller and Accountant General through your office on what you've earmarked yourself to receive.
Okay, so it means that you're only receiving a salary as a member of
That's correct.
parliament.
I can give you.
So the ministerial work is free. You're doing it for free.
I'm not saying I'm serving the state. Whatever benefits are all captured in my salary as a member of parliament.
I have asked a categorical question. I'm saying that, I'm asking, you're a member of parliament, you have a due salary, is that not it?
That's correct.
Whether defined or not by a committee or a body or not, that is immaterial. So the added responsibility that the president has given you to come serve in his government, how are you being remunerated for that position and that hard work you're doing for Ghana?
Very good. You are being remunerated based on your salary as a member of parliament. So the little allowance that the state will have to pay you as minister will be migrated onto that salary scheme as an MP. So from day one, you have elected to take your salary as an MP. By the president's wisdom, you've been elected as, you've been nominated as a minister or a deputy minister. You choose where you draw your salary from. Any other allowance, you set it out in parliament. And it's set out in your pay slip and everything that you receive, so that it is clear that a minister who is also a member of parliament can also decide that I've elected to take my salary as a minister of state with these other benefits.
So with you chose the one with
to stay in parliament.
So you have your salary and then the added allowance.
That's it.
Okay.
Roland.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Sometimes when I listen to
you don't like
our
my questioning.
friends who are in
you don't like the way I question.
No, I'm not. I'm not complaining about you. When I listen to my friends who are in charge of the state affairs, I am tempted to agree with Honorable Joyce Barr, who said we have a lot of, ministers who still need to learn a lot.
You mean he needs to learn?
I'm not talking in specific about governance, because Roland, you see, as Patrick Bama sits here, the salary he is on is in lieu of his actual conditions of service,
which has not been set yet.
Which has not been set yet.
Yes,
and
he's acknowledged that.
No,
or he's refused to acknowledge that.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah.
He thinks that he's on salary per what he has just said.
No, he knows. He's a lawyer. He knows what he's talking about.
You see,
he's making a very big mistake.
Then he's doing propaganda if he's ignoring that.
Because you're saying the two of you, what you receive as MPs is not defined.
What we receive as MPs is based on what was decided by the Presidential Emoluments Committee set up by President Mahama. As we speak, whoever is a minister under Nana Akufo-Addo's government is not paid the salary he is entitled to until President Nana Akufo-Addo sets up a presidential committee that will determine the conditions of service under Article 71 holders.
And that
when that is determined, it will now be worked against the salary he is currently receiving as deputy minister. And if there is an additional money that should be paid to him, it is paid to him.
It's refunded.
Yes, as arrears,
Back pay.
as salary arrears. If there is supposed to be a deduction, it is also done. And then his ex gratia is also calculated on that. And that has been the practice from 1993. So to sit here and say that Nahu Kosam, President Mahama should have appointed the commission earlier, you see, it's simply it comes across as, let me say, not palatable. Because even as we speak, President Akufo-Addo hasn't done it. President Kufuor didn't do it earlier. President Rawlings didn't do it earlier. President Mills didn't do it earlier. Or is it just the fun that is associated with bashing Mahama?
No,
so
there's no fun. Nobody enjoys bashing
So if
Mahama.
he didn't do it,
but I'm saying
usual,
that he set it up in November 2016.
No, they finished their work in November 2016. They finished their work in November 2016. So as we speak today, that's what I'm telling you. As we speak today, President Akufo-Addo is in his second year. He's not set it up. When he sets it up, do you know how many months it will take them to finish? So if you are in a canoe, you don't laugh at those who are dead.
We are not in a canoe.
If you are in a canoe crossing a river, you don't laugh at those who are dead.
Suhini, you are receiving salary as a member of parliament.
In lieu of my actual conditions of service.
Very well.
When it is determined by
Article 71. He asked me a specific question.
Yes.
Which category I had elected myself to enjoy my benefits. And I said, I elected to enjoy my salary as a member of parliament. Whether under a previous commission of a commission set out by President Mahama, if President Akufo-Addo sets it up, you receive your arrears. Yes.
We have to educate the viewers.
That's the point.
So my position is that my position is that, and you're a legal practitioner, yes. You're a very good friend too, and you educate me on a lot of things. He's my friend too. But at the end of the day, the truth is that.
But Roland, the way you have truncated me, I haven't made sense. I don't think I have.
That what?
Yeah,
but you finished.
I haven't finished. You interjected and you moved to him.
No, because he talked. No,
let him finish.
Okay.
Let
I
him
gave
finish.
you that. Okay, you know, because he spoke at length. So the point I'm making is that we need to educate our viewers so that they understand how these processes work. So at the press conference yesterday, what we said was that from 1993. The usual practice has always been that the members of parliament and Article 71 office holders, including the judiciary.
You've made that point.
No, but
you want to re-emphasize.
Just to restate, and then maybe that will help me conclude. So we made that point at the press conference that Article 71 holders since 1993, the Presidential Emoluments Commission has always finished its work late, and so at the end of the period of the 4 years, the 4-year period, the whatever calculation that is required is done. If deductions are to be made, they are made, and then the ex gratia calculated and paid to whoever. So it is that same reconciliation process that is happening currently. But because our friends in government, some of them are new to public service, they don't even understand these things, and we believe it is that ignorance when it comes to public service, and I'm restricted to public service, that is making them think that something untoward has happened. And that is why we want to know who in government has written any report anywhere that has suggested some wrongdoing on the part of these ministers to the CID, for which the CID is investigating. If there's nobody like that in government, it is just based on the instincts or prompting of the CID itself, we will accordingly advise ourselves and sue the CID department. Yeah. Then my friend also talks about 10% of salaries of appointees that were deducted. Look, that was a sacrifice never seen before in this country and deserves commendation.
And what happened to
it? The fact is that those monies, we are told, were indeed deducted. The Comptroller and Accountant General at some point was asked to transfer those monies to the presidency to the Flagstaff House. The presidency indeed utilized those funds. 11 chip compounds, as at the time were handing over, were built. 6 in the eastern region were constructed,
monumental.
two each in Greater Accra, and also I think, yes, in Greater Accra in Central Region. And one was started in Ho, that was not completed until we handed over. So you see, nobody in government before has attempted to say that because of the suffering of the people, we want to identify with them. And so we want to take part of our salary, 10%, to contribute to national development.
Roland,
our brothers today, 110 ministers, let them make that sacrifice, that they want to also identify with the people, and they will want to contribute part of their salary to the development of this country.
Okay.
Let them do it.
A government will set aside 10% and build 11 chip compounds. But Sweeney was talking about members of this government not having any experience in public service.
Some of them, I said some of them.
Okay, but I want to disagree with you that 80% of the members of President Akufo-Addo's government have had a taste of public service and very experienced. That is why they are leading this country in the right direction.
That point has been made.
Rather than what we observed under President Mahama.
That's not correct.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask as we conclude this, as you conclude this, is the fact that do you acknowledge or know that what you're receiving is not what you should be receiving, and that you're receiving a remuneration that is based on an old structure?
A remuneration based on law.
Okay.
Based on law.
Okay. All right. Now let's move on. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee is saying that petroleum projects are non-existent. If you want to look at what the projections are and the allocations had been for what those projects will be used, or what those funding will be used for, per the allocations that have been made. He said the revenues that were supposed to, and we're talking about Dr. Stephen Mantia, the revenues that are supposed to be used for those allocated projects had not been used. They had been budgeted, but had not been used for the intended projects. And that was a concern for the Public Interest and Accountability Committee. If you take a look at the story, and it says that they were worried about the lack of involvement of communities and beneficiary institutions in the selection and implementation and tracking how those monies were used. And would want to just watch Stephen Mantia a bit, get some insights from that press conference, and then we'll come back and talk about this passionately as we can.
In 2016, following the initial inspection of projects in the 3 regions of the North, PIAC wrote to the Ministry of Finance for explanation on the non-existent projects. The letter was dated 4th August 2016. As we speak, the letter is yet to be acknowledged, let alone acted upon. We are therefore compelled to compile a list of these ghost projects and refer them to the Auditor General for further investigation. Should any wrongdoing be established, PIAC will ensure the trigger of the necessary prosecutorial processes to forestall their reoccurrence. The committee has observed that the Ministers of Finance over the years not complied with the provision of updates on the status of implementation of oil-funded projects, as required by Section 48(2)(b), which states that the minister shall actually submit a reconciliation report of the petroleum revenues, and the report shall describe the stage of completion of the programmed activities funded by and the expenditures incurred on the activities covered by the annual budget funding amount in the financial year of the report. PIAC is of the view that the thin spread of the ABFA funds over hundreds of projects across the length and breadth of the country has made compliance with this provision difficult. Recommendations. As a result of these findings and observations, the committee would like to prefer the following recommendations. 1. Payment to contractors for certified work done should be made promptly to forestall cost overruns and ensure value for money. This said, contracts for the execution of projects and any associated variation orders should be awarded only after it is certain that the funds needed to complete the projects will be available. 2. The selection of projects to be executed in the districts should be aligned with the Assembly's medium-term development plans, which incorporates the development needs of the communities. This will ensure the selection of priority projects.
We all heard Dr. Stephen Mantia. Let me start off with you, particularly with this and the way we allocate funds and sometimes end up not using them for an intended project, etc.
It's interesting and smacks of misappropriation of public funds. We heard him. He presides over a very serious institution of state or agency. One, what is PIAC supposed to do? They're supposed to track some of these things and report in accordance with the law. And which areas are we supposed to invest these funds? One, in agriculture through amortization, road infrastructure, and capacity building. So in the first place, if these funds were not applied in those areas, then we must look for who did that job. We must look for the said government official who was in charge of that project or program. I know PIAC is under the Ministry of Finance. So if by law you are supposed to apply these funds in these 4 areas that I've mentioned, and you decided to send it to other areas, and also let it incur cost overruns and also inflated prices, then the third most dangerous thing, which is marks of corruption, is where those projects can never be found or located. Then we have a problem. These things happen in the 3 northern regions, where the whole country is aiming at uplifting the poverty levels in the regions. And if such a report comes from such a serious institution of state, then there's cause to worry. Roads from Somanya, schools in Apedra, Asikuma Road, Eastern Corridor, that Suhini's colleague from the Eastern Corridor, they always ask the minister for road questions. So these are some of the things that I believe that the investigative authorities of state must take a look at. I'm happy that Dr. Mantiao said he was referring it to the Auditor General for further scrutiny, and he's happy and he'll be ready to report to the good people of Ghana that if anybody is found culpable, they will ensure that that person is prosecuted. And I want to advise other civil society organizations to also put their eye or investigative eye on this issue and track it and ensure that the proper audit is done by the Auditor General. If anybody is found to have misappropriated or misapplied these funds as required by law, nobody will go and hold a press conference and talk about witch hunting, because Ghanaians are becoming fed up with witch hunting press conferences when serious institutions of state have done their work and have made recommendations. Then the fifth arm of government will come and hold a press conference and say that, I'm being witch hunted, when they know that the law requires that you have to spend these monies into these areas. Then Joy FM and multimedia will not go into the countryside and bring out documentaries of school children sitting under trees and hospital not having oxygen, for which a doctor will take out the plug on an innocent person for just 500 cedis. When we sat down and not responded to a letter from PIAC as far back as 4th August 2016, Where was the Minister of Finance? Why didn't he respond to the letter? What was he running away from? What had he uncovered that will lead to some of this cost overruns and misapplication of funds meant to be used in these 4 areas as set out by law? So I want to encourage PIAC. They are doing a good job. They shouldn't end it there. And I also want to advise my government officials who are working within this ambit to ensure that monies meant for PIAC under the annual budget funding amount are utilized in the areas as set out by law, and ensure that they use proper mechanisms like the Ministry of Monitoring and Evaluation to ensure that monies meant for these 4 areas are utilized, so that we don't find ourselves in this situation where a letter is written to a Minister of Finance as far back as August and he not responding to it.
Well, Roland, let me quickly just respond to or maybe make comments on the few political jabs and look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture of utilizing petroleum funds. I thought that was going to be what will engage our attention, but I cannot let those political jabs pass without comment. First of all, when he talks about the Epedwa SDA Primary School, this was detected in the 2017 budget. I'm sorry.
2017?
2017 when they started the inspections.
2017 report or budget?
2017 budget.
Read it.
Look,
there hasn't been any report.
Listen. Following the 2016 revelation, which you talked about, the letter written in August, PIAC, Dr. Mantio said PIAC decided to expand the scale of its inspection in 2017. Because they do it yearly by yearly. So they take the experience from 2016 and therefore inspected 40 projects being funded through the annual budget funding amount in the Ashanti, Eastern, Greater Accra and Volta regions. And in 2017 budget, the ABFA was to fund these projects. And so they expanded their scope to look at it.
Okay.
So please.
So let's await,
too much in a hurry to dump
the PIAC report for 2017.
Yes. No. Let's that's why I'm saying that, look. No, the report is here. It says that, citing the example of a Epedwa school in the East Akim municipality in the Eastern region, he said the East Akim Municipal Assembly was unaware of the existence of an ABFA funded project in the area, and that is what they have a concern with. So if you are citing that school as an example, I beg you, it's not.
But let's move on to the general issue about misappropriation, misapplication, and all that. I think that's what the
why don't you talk about the Eastern Corridor?
See, I could have interrupted you, Patrick. I could have, but I allowed you to finish so I can respond to you. So let's not do that. Then again, you talk about 40% of projects that, or is it 50% that they said could not be accounted for?
It's 50%.
50%. And he talks about the Eastern Corridor. No, I'm talking about the report. Talks about the Eastern Corridor, projects on the Eastern Corridor, and also parts of the Northern region. Now, he says that the letter was written to the Minister of Finance in August 2016, when the NDC government was left with 4 months to leave office. The NPP finance minister, August 2016.
It's 4 months to your exiting government?
August, September, October, November, December. 4 months.
Left in
we did
January.
elections in December. So I'm just saying, for the record, the NDC government did not leave with the finance ministry. The NDC government left as a party, and the finance ministry has been in office, is still there, occupied by an MPP appointee since January till date.
Can Fayata responded to Setekwe's letter?
Setekwe's letter. Was it written to Setekwe or the
4
finance
months?
ministry?
So
you see what I was talking about, understanding of governance?
You are saying that a letter that was addressed to Setekwe 4 months,
it was
he could not respond to it.
It was written to the finance ministry in August for a response.
Which had a finance minister. Why didn't he respond to it?
There is still a finance minister. There is still a finance minister. Why is that finance minister not responding to that letter? Are you saying that all the letters that went to the ministry before January 2017
so your point in raising this
have not been responded to?
Your point in raising this as well.
The point is that governance is a continuum. So if there's any wrongdoing, about 50% of work that wasn't done, let the current finance minister write to PIAC. That is governance. That is governance. I'm saying that Secretary and the NDC could have been blamed for not responding to the letter if they were still in office today. You can only blame them for not responding to the letter for 4 months. What about the one who has had 1 year, 3 months to respond to the letter? What blame will you give that person if you are blaming someone for not responding to a letter that came to him 4 months after he handed over? So let's not do the politics in that manner. But the bigger picture of funding projects using ABFA has to do with the whole government structure of awarding contracts, inspecting those contracts, and the process of payment. I know contractors today who are not even willing to take GOG projects because of the frustration and the procedure people have to go through to access payment, and how those frustrations lead to variations which eventually make projects more expensive.
Not necessarily because somebody wanted to chop.
It is something, it is a practice that we have lived with in this country all these years. It is not right. And in addressing it, it is not, politically wise to do propaganda with it.
Who's doing
because
propaganda?
every government in this country has carried out projects which costs, in some cases, have led to over 100% compared to the initial estimated cost, simply because of sometimes the frustrations that we have in our public service when it comes to accessing payment by contractors. So I'm saying that if you go to the district assembly and then a project is initiated, the contractor raises, say, 1 or 2 certificates. Those certificates get to the finance ministry. He spends months chasing those certificates. Meanwhile, the project had a year span of, say, 8 months. Within that 8 months, the projection that was used to arrive at the contract cost would have been based on the prevailing price indicators. So if the payment delays and the project delays for over a year,
an effect on the final.
Variations will set in, and that will have
an example.
Effects. There are so many. I don't want.
Let me give you an example. The presidential.
I don't want to.
The Jubilee House.
It has come to my mind. He's been asking questions about roads in Tamale.
Yes, Tamale. The county road.
I don't know the interest he has.
The interest I have on that road, in fact, is because when you look at that road, Kamble Tuna, Paumo.
Yeah, you were asking questions about Kamble.
Paumo and Fo and Ta are all beneficiaries of that road. And you see, if they don't finish that road, what we are discussing now is going to happen. I mean, the road was awarded on contract.
Let's wind up.
A contract sum of about 5 million Ghana cedis.
NDC refused to do
it. Now let's wind up.
They are trying to award it at about 7 to 10 million Ghana.
I'm cutting you. I'm cutting you. I know that maybe sometimes unfair. But generally. But generally, let's
again, another very important point was raised by Piag. The fact that projects are sometimes initiated without the involvement of the communities. I think it is key that some of our, appointees of state understand that a project is worthless when the people do not value it, when the people do not consider it their priority. If you go and put it up and it does not serve the interest of the people, then you have just wasted funds.
But let's spend the next 5 minutes looking at allocations and then trying to synchronize what the budget has an intention for which at the end of the financial year or the period where you have to account for the project, you don't find the projects on the ground. And it's something that we find across government. And if you look at the sitting of the public, is it the Public Accounts Committee? Mm-hmm. We tend to have this headline. For example, if we have a super there, you find that they said 50 projects, 50% of projects not accounted for. It means that the allocations were made, the monies were misapplied.
Cannot be true. You see, budgets, revenue, and expenditure.
They have to be aligned.
You raise the revenues to do the projects that you've budgeted or earmarked to do. So if you're unable to raise that amount of money, it means that those projects cannot be tackled. So sometimes we have to be very careful with what we say about misappropriation and misapplication.
Misapplication is which one?
Misapplication is when the money
is intended for this,
and the project, the project has been earmarked, we've allocated the funds, and you decide to go and buy a car with it. Then
that's misapplication.
Yes.
So we're having instances of more of misapplication and not misappropriation. Is that not it?
That's correct. It can happen.
Okay.
But misappropriation is fraudulent from day one. that if you misappropriate...
Yeah, that's embezzlement.
Yes,
we know that that's embezzlement.
From
now,
day one.
I think that sometimes, and I'm sure maybe one day we'll get to hear about the other side all the time when there's a change in government and all that. How do we situate the situation in such a way, telling the audience and the ordinary public that government runs in such a way? For example, national health insurance, is there supposed to be a statutory payment? Ideally, we're supposed to have it from the consolidated fund. You pay the 2.5 or whatever percentage it is. It's not always paid. It depends on how government's financial structure is and the way the finance ministry or the ministry responsible will see it. It could be misapplied. Is that not it? It could be misapplied. Is that not it?
By who?
Well, the finance minister takes a decision. But not that the money has been not that the money has been embezzled or misappropriated or misused. Is that not it?
Misapplied means you were given and you did not use it for its intended purpose.
Yeah, sure.
So
you change the
you change the
and that's what we're talking. Most of these instances are what PIAG is raising, and I want us to have a conversation around this and saying that you may have misapplied, which we're saying that it's not good for accountability and proper governance, but then it depends on how the finances it. Even your own home, you can decide to buy a TV set at the beginning of the year,
that is
and you get to find
discretion.
that by June you need to go and fund a surgery. And so you decide to misapply that money.
You see, that's not misapplication.
Now what
because
is it?
you have that discretion to use your money for any other thing. But this one, statute is telling you that the monies must be used for agriculture, road infrastructure, amortization, and capacity building.
Sure.
Then you decided to go and invest in guinea fowl,
so you are saying that we should hold those
correct.
Those who are supposed to be the head of those institutions responsible.
Will sit here and disagree with me on that. That if you are put in a certain position, I know he sat on the Civil Aviation Board. I know he went on a capacity building training.
I didn't.
You are not part of the delegation.
I didn't.
You are not part of the delegation. But we're not here to talk about it.
But were you given some CSR money to do some work in your community?
No.
As a board member?
No.
A board member is not supposed to do that.
I wasn't.
Certain people are given certain things to do.
Maybe
I'm not saying
boards.
some boards.
I think some private
GCA,
institutions do, corporate institutions do.
And it's very, very good. But what I'm saying is that he will not disagree with me that anybody who is given the responsibility to manage state funds and misapplies or misappropriates it must be let off the hook. I don't think he will disagree with me.
Okay, so it is wrong. So what actions would you want?
Right or wrong?
What actions would you want government take on such issues? Because we keep hearing it all the time.
Question when I will answer your
he's
question.
writing.
But you see, it is very interesting when we are not talking politics. We tend to do more education, which I think is helpful. You see, when you talked about the ABFA and misappropriation and misapplication, my very good friend Patrick spoke intellectually and truthfully about how when you do a budget allocation, it does not relate sometimes to the actual releases. That is why I will not be in haste to conclude that government proposed to do ABC projects using petroleum funds. And so if you go on the ground and 50% of those projects are unavailable, it directly means that someone embezzled the 50% that was allocated or misapplied.
Use it for something else.
It could actually be that the actual releases were not made. So you wait for a formal explanation from the finance ministry, not the
As
minister.
in an audit report
through an
or something.
audit. Yes, through an audit. That will indicate to you if the actual money that was proposed in the budget to be used for project
Is that not why timeously the finance ministry needs to respond to PIAC's letters quickly?
I don't
Because
fault that. I don't fault that.
August 2016.
I don't fault that. And
the letter was given.
I'm saying it is unacceptable for the finance ministry to take 2 years to respond to PIAC. Yes. It is
I like that
unacceptable.
one. I like this one.
So
It is
really
unacceptable.
laughs-
You
laughs is-
see, it is
And
not
that's the truth.
political. That's the truth. Let's be very factual. It is unacceptable. PIAC is a very, very important institution when it comes to accountability as far as the utilization of petroleum funds is concerned. And every state institution that works with it must, respect the communication between them. Now, you also spoke about misapplication and misappropriation. Now, there's a reason why Parliament passes the appropriation bill. And there's a reason why, by our laws, a Minister of Finance can also come with a supplementary budget.
That's correct.
So, by our laws, when you submit your budget and you indicate that you want to spend this amount of money on A, B, C, D, when in the course of the year, you find out that you don't need the television set again, you want a surgery, you come with a supplementary budget. And that supplementary budget will also then be passed by Parliament. In that supplementary budget, you can make the adjustments that you want to make.
In running Ghana, it's not easy. In running Ghana, we find certain lines in the budget read to us all the time. Fufusu Sola. I remember from Kufota we had Fufusu Sola.
Until the magical John Mahama government came, the Fufusu Sola road was always on the budget.
Somebody started
But he took it out.
Anyway, so we have
Tamale Airport was always on the budget. He took it out.
All right, so we have to wrap up. Thank you. You all love football. You will be an Arsenal fan.
Nice, Liverpool fan, but a disappointed Barcelona
fan as well.
Well, I'm losing my love for sports because of the scandals.
Oh, look at him.
We're talking Champions League.
We went to Brazil. We went to Brazil and carried $3 million. That's why you talk about it.
We shouldn't be in the race to the bottom. I thought you were better managers.
I thought you were not going to even go to.
No, I think his point is that we should have learned our lesson.
Yes, exactly.
And now he's talking about ministry. But you reminded him.
Is not a fool,
you reminded him of GOC.
I don't know what the second.
I don't know. He doesn't understand sports, so we shouldn't even start a discussion on sports.
Sports
management. No.
You think so? You think so?
But he said the ministry, but GOC.
No, is that appropriately the agency responsible?
There were 2 letters, one from GOC, one from the ministry. Go and check.
Do you have them?
No.
Go and check. There were 2 letters that went to the embassy. 2 letters went to the embassy. One from GOC, one from the ministry.
Okay, we wait for the investigation.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So you were a disappointed Barcelona fan, but a happy Liverpool fan.
We want a public commission of inquiry like happened in Brazil. That is accountability. Let the people see, feely.
Of what?
Throw sunlight of what happened at the Commonwealth Games. Let the people see.
And when the report
that
was
is what
presented,
President Mahama was doing. That, okay, there may be wrongdoing, but let the people see. Let President Nana Akufo-Addo set up a public commission of inquiry into this Commonwealth Games.
Which of the teams do you like? I know because I'm not sure you support any country at the Commonwealth Games.
Tamale United.
Where you now?
We are talking about what happened in Europe.
Just yesterday.
Champions League. They knocked out my team, Chelsea, and you are forcing me to talk about Champions League. I forgot of it long ago. I was happy that Barcelona was knocked out yesterday. By the same goals that they beat us with.
Yeah, you know. Okay, so we've had in the studio Patrick Yabo. I'm a member of Parliament for Okankwe Central, and also Deputy Minister Water and Sanitation. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Roland.
And I've had also here Al-Hassan Suhini, always a trouble guest.
Formerly of Radio Gold and Civil Aviation.
What?
Always a trouble guest. If you cut him short in a submission, you are in trouble.
When he's at his propaganda level.
Well, that one you are saying. Because he's a member of Parliament for Tamale North.
That's what I was saying.
I'm always happy. And the man who always makes sure he makes his point. Whatever interjection, he'll make the point. And the two of you have enjoyed your conversation.
Thank you.
Have a great time. When is Parliament resuming?
Mid-May.
Mid-May.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's a long time.
Wow.
No, April is almost okay. Yeah, mid-May is long.
It's about 5 weeks.
Have you been attending the events for your constituents?
I just returned from Tamale yesterday, and I had a very good time. Today is World Health Day.
Okay.
Whilst in Tamale, I visited a young boy who had a very serious problem, born with it, and
you are paying
it was terminal. Yes, in fact,
it's terminal.
It was terminal, but thankfully, Dr. Abbas, who is one of the respected surgeons in the country, in the Tamale at the Tamale Teaching Hospital, was able to intervene. After I was lucky to get the intervention of a leading member of the NDC, who is also a businessman's intervention. In fact, I have requested to mention his name, but he doesn't want to. In fact, he has spent over 9,000 Ghana cedis, in fact, almost 10,000 Ghana cedis.
One of your financiers, huh?
And no, he's just a philanthropist, and I'm happy that he listened to my call and the child, thanks to God, is now stable, and we pray that he comes out of that.
It's always good when you're in the you're a city MP. If you're an MP in the city, you don't have a problem.
Yeah,
you don't spend much.
Sure.
So that
he's a city MP and he's spending.
That's it for now.